So again, welcome everyone. Very happy to have you with us this afternoon. I'm really happy to have Glen and Muffy Weaver and Glen Holborn with us to talk about their work, about the books that they publish and why that it is that they decided to do this and why they're following this particular path of work. It's very exciting. Also, if you can make a donation to the One Mind Foundation, please do. You can do that also on our website. And hi.
Hi.
Hi. Good to see the two of you on the same screen instead of our usual one is on one floor and one's on
Yeah,
the floor.
yeah. It's a nice change.
Yeah, it is a nice change. So we've been working in similar directions for quite a long time now. When did you pick up A Course in Miracles, by the way? When did you start with that? Do you know?
Well, I'll start a year before that, John.
Well, I know, but
Ah,
just a year
now,
before?
first things first. First things first.
Okay,
In 1977,
that's very early.
I was living, and I had at a community in Oregon that I had co-founded in 1971. In 1977, this young lady showed up.
Uh-huh.
It was love at first sight.
Uh-huh. Nice.
The year following, 1978, we had a visitor who came up to me completely unannounced. She had these three hardbound blue books. She didn't tell me anything about it. She simply said, Glenn, I know these are for you. Please take them. And so that was 1978. That was A Course in Miracles. Um, and when I looked at it, I recognized the voice. I
Ah,
simply recognized the voice.
yeah,
And and I trusted it totally.
right.
And I didn't understand it. I didn't understand what I was reading.
Really?
Yeah, no, but that came eventually. But so yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, sure.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
And this is the old days before internet, and
Oh
so
gosh, yeah.
yeah, no groups to be with or anything. I was living way out in the country, and
Right. Yeah, well, it was that way for all of us in the beginning. I mean, I started traveling with it in I guess the 80s, somewhere along in there. But and then when did you come to let's go to the next step. What was it? Tell us about the publishing company you had before, and then your decision to publish A Course of Love.
sure. Well, eventually, we left the community. I went into a career as an attorney, and then we moved to Ananda Village, which was a community in the footsteps of Paramahansa Yogananda.
Oh.
And um, and it was there that Muffy and I became acquainted with a very small publishing company, and I became its first editor. It
Mhm.
was called Dawn Publications, DAWN Publications, and we published mostly children's books about nature. It was always about nature. So
Hmm.
we did that. We started in 86,
We bought the company in 96.
96. Okay. Yeah,
And these were primarily picture books. And we would get 2,000 to 3,000 unsolicited manuscripts every year.
Oh my
And we
gosh.
six.
but
How'd you sort through that?
oh, it was interesting. So we had our choice. It was great, and we just basically published 6 books a year, and we did that for quite a few years. But then along came, so I was very much still, I mean, we're very much with A Course in Miracles. But there was something in my being that was just, there's more, there's got to be more, there's got to be more. My soul was calling for something more. And by that time, the internet was available. And so I went on and looked, and I found this conference that had already passed. It was a 2012 conference, but I discovered it in end of February, early March of 2013. And I knew pretty much everybody who was there. It was a Miracles in the Mountains uh, conference. Um, but I did not recognize one or two people, and one of them was Mari Perone.
Oh,
And so I looked her up and I discovered, oh yeah, she had self-published these three books called A Course of Love, 3 volumes, and I bought them immediately. Figured I'd read them in the next couple of weeks. Well, I can't speed read the truth, and
no.
it was amazing. It was amazing because again, I recognized the voice.
All right.
So, and by that time, I had a little bit of opening in my schedule in that fall of 2013. And I figured, well, I can't go and visit with Helen and Bill, but I could visit with Mari. So I got in touch with her and we visited for a lovely weekend.
Uh-huh.
To my surprise, a really lovely lady. Mari's a wonderful lady.
By the way, I think she's on.
Oh, good. Oh,
Yes.
good.
She,
Um, so, to my surprise, she kind of, in a complete non sequitur, she said, "Glenn, would you publish A Course of Love?"
uh-huh.
I hesitated. I said, "No, I don't think so. It's not exact. It's not what we do. We publish children's books about nature." But I went home, went back to the hotel that evening, and it just that question lived in me.
Mhm.
The next morning, as I was getting ready to go to the airport, I called her. I said, "Hey, Mari, did you mean what you said?" Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was interesting. And so I meditated about it on the flight home, and I talked with Muffy when we got home, and we decided that, nah, gee, it just felt right. So that if all lights turned green, we
Wow.
do. And the major light that needed to turn green was our small staff, because we would only do things that were, in harmony with our staff.
All right.
And so they took a look and they said yes. So then, eventually we arranged to do that, and it was published in September of 2014. And
Wow.
so but obviously, Course of Love is way different from all the children's books about nature. So we gave it a different name. We called it Take Heart Publications. So this is Take Heart Publications. So from left to right, we have A Course of Love, and then another little book that I'll mention briefly. And then the next one is Choose Only Love. This comes through Sebastian Blacksley. Choose Only, there's only one is shown here in the picture, but that's 7 volumes.
Wow. Wow.
And then there's The Age of the Heart, there's Dewdrops, and some others. But this kind of gives you a little flavor of what Take Heart has grown into. So I have quite a few. I have many of these. I mean, they're all marked up. I have like 4 or 5 thoroughly marked up copies of A Course of Love. I also have this little one, very small, little book called A Bridge. And what that is, the subtitle is Exploring the Connections Between A Course in Miracles and A Course of Love. And so some people come in, they have big questions about it. Well, what's this? It's a little different. And so rather than have to answer all those by email, we decided to publish that little book.
Good.
And then, of course, then there's these, the Choose Only Love books. This is volume 1 of 7. So this is an enormous work of, it adds up to like 1,400 pages. And it's not a course. It's not a course.
No.
It's experience of divinity. It's being imbued and being thoroughly drenched in the divine. So that's that experience. Another one that is through Sebastian Blacksley is called The Age of the Heart. It's a fantastic book in which Jesus is more talking about the world that we're moving into. It's different. But it's fabulous. Lots of great information. There's the next one that's sort of similar to it is Resurrection Consciousness, which is new and fantastic. very deep. Then this one is Truly Beloved. It's a series of 3. This is the only one that's out right now. I'm about to publish the second one.
Wow.
This one is Love Letters from the Divine Mother in You. The second one is Love Letters from the Christ in You. And the final one, which will be late this year, will be Love Letters from an Angel.
Ah.
And then finally, we have Dewdrops of Wisdom, which is not through Sebastian. This is through a lady in Hungary, Marietta Baregi, who fell in love with the Course of Love, who fell in love with Choose Only Love, and ended up hearing and having a whole dialogue with Mother Mary. Dewdrops of Wisdom is, the subtitle is Practical Guidance from Mother Mary.
A
Yeah.
lot of inspiration here.
Oh, there's and it keeps coming. As especially Sebastian is like, whoa, he's receiving so much, and it's really magnificent material, and I'm very pleased to be able to share it with the world.
On spot. My gosh. I'm surprised to realize that I actually met Mari before you guys did. I met her in 2009, I believe it was. We had our first chat together when I was up around her way.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
So obviously, A Course of Love came through Mari Perron. I consider Mari Perron to be a true, genuine, reliable receiver. She prefers that word rather than, channel or whatever. But, so Mari, as I understand it, wasn't conflicted. She's a devout Catholic. She was in line, and she had studied or read A Course in Miracles many times through, but she was like there. She was right there with it energetically. And so when she received it, it just came through.
Right.
So I can feel that about it. And sometimes they say about channels that, well, is it really the channel or is it the source? And with in the case of Mari, I am completely confident that it is the source. It is Jesus's words that are coming through very reliably.
So this is it's really a matter of hearing, isn't it? I did a piece this morning for Sunday with Mundy, which was about revelation, but it's also about hearing. Mozart heard the music, for example. Yeah. He said he didn't compose. It wasn't a matter of figuring out and trying different things. It was, and very often people that write. We got Glen on with us. You hear the poem. The poem comes to you. You're given it. This is a gift, right? Yeah. And I'm sure that they're all. And I knew Helen. I know Helen didn't write Course in Miracles. That's not how it. Absolutely not. First of all, just the language itself is so incredibly beautiful and so amazingly clear and free. By free, I mean free of prejudicial points of view, for example, and that kind of thing that often writing comes that way to us. So this has changed your lives.
Totally. I thought I'd be retired by now, but I am sort of retired, but like I'm busier than ever.
No, I don't think you're going to retire. No, I like to think that go ahead. We don't want to.
Why another course? It's a very valid question.
Yeah.
Because A Course in Miracles is so amazing. It is so seminal. It seems to be so complete. And yet, consciousness goes on. Our consciousness is moving along very quickly. And so obviously Jesus had the desire, continued the mission. What he says about this is, Jesus says the only reason for the continuation, this is the word continuation of the coursework provided in A Course in Miracles. the only reason being that of establishing a direct relationship with the divine.
Right.
That is the only reason. I mean, he had other reasons, but this was really, he says it's the only reason for the continuation of the coursework provided in A Course in Miracles is to establish in each of us a direct relationship with the divine. Well, hallelujah.
Yeah. So then we all hear. I mean,
Right.
the idea is we all start hearing the voice, the Holy Spirit, or whatever terminology you want to use, just the voice, period. The voice
Right.
of God,
Voice within, yes.
voice within, speaking in our lives.
Whereas Course in Miracles has 365 fantastic workbook lessons, my favorite of which is 109, I rest in God.
Mhm.
My favorite is the
Yeah,
hush
what's-
holds my heart today,
Hush of heaven holds
oh
me.
yeah, that's very good.
where that is, but I love that.
Yeah.
Of course.
With A Course in Love, Jesus didn't need to redo the workbook. He didn't need to redo all those lessons.
Hmm.
Apparently, he didn't think he needed to. But there's only one. There's only one lesson for the mind in A Course of Love, and it says to dedicate all thought to union.
Hmm.
In other words, dedicate all thought, dedicate your mind to unity, to oneness, to God. So that's the only lesson, the only lesson for the mind in the book.
Yeah, sometimes I think of, you talk about dedicating the mind. I could sometimes think about it's really turning over the mind, giving up the insane mind, if you will, uh, which is the whole process of the atonement in the Course in Miracles,
Yeah.
so that spirit can get through. Removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence. That's our job. Our job is to remove those blocks.
Yeah.
And then once those blocks are set aside, then we become receptive. That what I'm getting at is the receptive part, the hearing part on the part of any one of us. All right.
And in order for the blocks need to be identified.
Well, yes.
We need to be willing and eager to discover the blocks to love within it. All those points of fear,
Yeah.
fear and separation. So, in A Course of Love, Jesus uses the word wholeheartedness.
Hmm.
Wholeheartedness is the integration, shall I say, of the heart and the mind.
Right.
So that, it's not denigrating the mind, but it's elevating the heart to the leading position because he's saying that the heart is the center of ourself. That's true. Our center is our heart. And, it's not the organ, it's not the pump,
Oh, of
but
course.
but that's the best word he could come up with to describe the center of ourself.
Oh,
And
the mind's not the brain either.
no.
Far from, we're talking about organs here as opposed to something that transcends organs altogether. All right.
Yeah. So I continue to find A Course of Love to be not a text to be read, although it's fabulous reading. I think it's extremely well written, quite elevating in many ways. But to me, it's more of a transmission
Mm-hmm.
than a text. So, and it's a movement away from the belief of the supremacy of the mind. So the question is then, how do you read it?
Mm-hmm.
Read A Course of Love, because this is huge. I mean, can you imagine trying to write a book that will change people's consciousness through words? Through words, really, what a tall order.
Well, that's what we got to work with, though.
That's what we have to work with, exactly. And so so anyway, Jesus is absolutely a genius at using words to reach the heart. So
Mm.
so he says, okay, how do you read A Course of Love? Not in the usual way. He says to listen, to respond, to let meaning be revealed. I ask you only to pause, to give the mind a rest, to enter a realm foreign to the mind and yet beloved to the heart.
Mm.
That's
Mm.
very similar to a passage in the Course in Miracles, which says, listen, learn, and do.
Mm.
The same kind of three steps there.
Yeah.
Oh,
So there's a few things about A Course of Love that are different.
Mhm.
Uh, one is that perhaps most instinctively, you don't say, "Oh, I'm a Course of Love student."
Hmm.
You don't say that. I've never heard that phrase used.
Hmm.
And you don't say, "I'm a Course of Love teacher," because there are no Course of Love teachers. So what it is encouraging us to do is to be in dialogue, to be in direct relationship with the divine. And so in dialogue, we share what comes through the portal of the heart and into the mind. So, what was very distinctive was that he says, when talking about how to understand and how to interpret A Course of Love, he says the only correct interpretation of Course of Love is that which comes from each reader's own internal guidance system.
Sure.
So with one fell swoop, he said, no courses, no certification programs, no ministers. I mean, it's like that's totally wonderful and appropriate for A Course in Miracles, because A Course in Miracles is this huge step from ordinary consciousness to something way more than that. And so, we have John Mundy as a teacher. We People like Carol Howe as teachers of A Course in Miracles, and now we have even a novel. We have many teachers, but we have Alan Ishak's novel, Mystic in the Muse, which is a wonderful, easy way to take in the basic principles of A Course in Miracles. But in terms of Course of Love, no, it's not a matter of there being teachers, but there are many groups worldwide, both in person and online, that we call it dialogue.
All right.
And so it's different. It's different.
Right. It's what it means to you. It's how you open up to it or how somebody else opens up to it. And becomes, again, I keep coming back to the word receptive. Begin to become receptive to it, right? To hear it.
Another way that A Course of Love is distinctive is it really goes deeply into addressing feelings.
Hmm. Yeah.
And I think there's two distinctive ways in which it does so. It identifies feelings, not so much thoughts, but feelings being the motor, being of the engine of creativity.
Hmm.
So he says, he's one lovely phrase here. He says, each blade of grass,
Hmm.
each flower, each stone is a creation of feelings.
Hmm.
And so Jesus is asking us to manifest through our lives visibly, demonstrably,
Mhm.
these feelings that are our interaction, our relationship with Christ consciousness, with the divinity.
Yeah.
So now the other aspect of feelings, which I find fascinating, I've never seen this anywhere else.
mm,
He identifies the way that feelings can be negative, can so he says about repressed feelings.
Uh-huh.
He says repressed feelings, basically, they all have to come out because they're like that big iceberg. It's all got to be revealed eventually, because they don't go away. They were felt because they were felt, not just thought, but because they were felt, they were real. And so he talks about a fascinating distinction between feelings that are rejected and feelings that are ejected. And basically, the difference is, in a nutshell, feelings that are rejected are feelings in which you are blaming yourself. You're suppressing the feeling because you're blaming yourself.
Right.
Feelings that are ejected are those in which you're blaming the world.
Mm.
And the consequences of those two modes of suppression or rejection are vastly different. It's a fascinating chapter. It's a fascinating chapter
All right.
in A Course of Love. There's another way that A Course of Love is very different, and it's about the way of Mary.
Hmm.
There's a chapter in A Course of Love called, the title of the chapter is The Way of Mary. So Jesus is contrasting the way of Mary with the way of Jesus.
Hmm.
The way of Jesus, he says, and this is a quote, he says, the way of Jesus is to call others to the new through means so widespread, varied, and remarkable that they cannot be ignored.
Hmm.
Right? That's the way of Jesus.
Right.
And he says that the way of Jesus is still important, it's still with us, but it's on its way out.
Hmm.
And eventually, he says, all will follow the way of Mary.
Mm.
So, what is the way of Mary? The way of Mary is to be what they are called, what these people, each person is called to be, so that it's not a doing, it's a being. And being was recognized as a very powerful force. It's creative.
Right.
Uh, so he says, those called to the way of Mary are called to be what they want to see reflected in the world. In their being, they become what they want to create.
Wow. It's really
Calls, he refers to that as only once as the power of reflection.
Mm.
And he says that those in the way of Mary are they're called to be anchoring. That's the word he uses several times, anchoring the new world. And he also says that these beings, the people who are following the way of Mary are the womb of the new.
right.
So the other thing that's I think distinctive about A Course of Love is it's calling us into what Jesus calls the elevated self of form.
Hmm.
So, honestly, form gets a pretty bad rap.
Yeah, sure does.
And legitimately, I mean, form is illusory.
Right.
There's no question about that. And the personal self that we are, I mean, that we think we are, is how we present ourselves to others.
Sure.
Illusion. So, what is this elevated self of form that Jesus is talking about in A Course of Love? And it's basically the integrate. It's not well, basically the way that Jesus was personally on earth 2,000 years. He demonstrated an elevated self of form. And he's in form,
Right.
elevated, but still in form. And so he's asking us to be fully embodied in our divinity.
Mhm.
And he says that it gives the body a new purpose. And I love this. I'm going to read this one or two sentences here. He says, observe the personal self. Okay, the personal self that we tend to always think that we really are. Okay, mistake. But he says, observe the personal self with one last act of love and devotion.
Hmm.
And in so doing, transform the personal self into a representation of the truth,
Hmm.
calling the true self forth into observable form is the end of the old and the beginning of the new. And
Hmm.
that is what creates a new world, and a change in the world that we think we live in. That's the illusory world that we're part of.
Right.
So that is the elevated self of form. All right, last thing about A Course of Love.
All right.
What is the final judgment? What is the final judgment? He says, with the onset of the vision of love, many of you will make one final judgment in which you find everything to be good and full of love.
Hmm.
Then judgment is over naturally, for it has served its purpose.
Hmm.
This is the final judgment.
Hmm.
So yeah, I resonated with A Course of Love when I first read it, and
Of course.
oh, I mean, wow, and I've been the overseer of its publication into quite a few different languages now, about 10 different languages,
Um,
more coming along. So it's been quite a journey for me, and I am deeply
oh,
grateful.
that's a lot of work, all those languages.
Yeah, no kidding.
I know that was major work for the Course in Miracles. I think it's like in 23 languages now or something like that. But well, I
Yeah.
know that was a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and yet at the same time, it always comes to me. I never go out after a translator.
That's interesting.
I never do that, and I know that the Course in Miracles folks never did that either.
No,
So, no, you need to find just the right person
right.
of consciousness and ability to translate it, and they show up
And a team.
in a team. Yeah, they don't do it alone. I always insist there be at least two
Right.
people.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Sometimes
So,
it'd be an initial person, I think, that starts and then they realize that they need help.
well, but also I insist that they get help in their own mother tongue,
That's what
so
I mean. Yeah,
it works together seamlessly. So yeah.
right.
Okay, it's fine. Um, Another quote,
Oh yeah.
Course of Love.
Yeah.
This is the answer to the question of what is next. If there is nothing to learn, if coursework is behind you and accomplishment is complete, what then are you to do? You are to create in community, in dialogue, in commitment and togetherness. You are to be the living covenant of the new. And of course, there are many, many ways to create in community. We're right here gathered in community. But the way that I've been called to create in community is to create living together on this land, creating a small eco-spiritual community here. And how this came to me is that in 2020, we sold our publication company, Dawn Publication. And so I had a little time on my hand. So I did a process of just asking the divine, how can I serve with the life that's left in me?
Mm-hmm.
70th birthday, which was just over 4 years ago, I wrote this intention on a rock, and I've created these trails. We live on this incredible 80-acre piece of property, 800 feet above the wild and scenic Yuba River. And I've made trails going down. I have a mile-long trail that goes down.
These are very, very challenging, steep trails, let me tell you.
So Glenn and I hiked down on my 70th birthday, and I threw the rock in the river. And pretty quickly, I just got this
Within hours.
vision to go ahead and co-create a community here on this. And I make little deals with Divine Mother, and I relate to Spirit as Divine Mother. And I told her that I would, of course, do this, but only if I could have these two builders that we've known that are such beautiful men, skillful and huge hearts, Roderick and Logan, and they were both available. And so began our journey, and we really only just this spring completed. We needed, of course, when we have a community, what do we need? First of all, we need a temple. We need a place to come together and share our, not just with us living here, but we're part of a much bigger network of people in the whole area. And so
And some housing.
and we needed housing. So only just this last spring have we completed this. And so now you can show the first slide of our temple. And our temple is dedicated to Divine Mother, to the mother of us all, to the mother of unconditional love, to the mother that is all around us in nature, to the mother that's the deepest part of each of our hearts. And the next slide is another picture of the temple in the springtime. So you can see around the edge of a river canyon. And last spring there were a lot of lupin, but these windows there face east. The windows that you see face east and to the rising sun. And 800 feet below, we can see the Yuba River.
Wow.
This one is just a shot inside the temple. This was an event we had in May to dedicate the temple. And we wanted to show you this to see the context. Just last May, we finished this beautiful stained glass window that you can see in the roof. So you can go to the next.
Before you do, just take a look at the ceiling. And yeah, if you look up at the ceiling, you'll see the stained glass.
Right.
And next one. And this was one of the many, many little miracles that happened in the creation of Wild Grace, where we had these 4 skylights that were 2 feet by 4 feet. And we were just about to have the roof put on, the metal roof put on. And we had already met Rod Friend and had known he had done some stained glass. And we thought, wouldn't it be lovely to have one of his stained glass masterpieces in our temple? And so
Rod had been commissioned. I mean, he was a stained glass artist for much of his long life, and he had been commissioned to do stained glass works in museums and churches and hospitals and so on in Europe.
Yes. And we've talked about where we would put it. And he said, 2 feet wide isn't quite enough. So we were able at the last minute to get a larger window and have the roof cut to the right size. And then he began this very, very detailed process of creating this incredible stained glass. This is Our Lady Stella. I also we think of her as the mother of the universe. This was his last. Rod recently left this plane. He was in his 80s. 86. And this was his last masterpiece.
Oh my goodness.
And we feel like we are blessed.
Yes.
Every time we're blessed. The light shines through Our Lady Stella and blesses us with the love of the mother, and also the love of Rod and the love of Alice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Alice is with us too today.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah.
What is the size on this now? You said 2 foot wasn't enough. It's
4 feet by 4 feet. And what happened was that after Rod finished all the pieces, he boxed them all up. They're I forget now, 89 pieces. He boxed them all because he didn't think he'd be able to have this make it in one piece, because he lives in Spain. He was living in Spain.
right.
It arrived last last fall, early
So this
fall.
was sort of stained glass by numbers because he had numbered each little piece.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And Roderick leaded it all. He had some experience with it, but then he consulted extensively with Rod
Yeah.
and put it together.
Wow. It
And
worked.
technically because it's at an angle, it's not just, usually stained glass is vertical,
Right.
so it has a little more strength that way, but this is not. This is on the sloping roof.
Right.
So with a piece of stain as of a plate glass underneath it to give it stability.
Right. Wow. All right. So I think you've got some other pictures to show us. Huh?
No,
That's it. That's it.
Well, that's it for now. Oh, okay.
We haven't taken.
Yep. Yep.
At this point, we usually look and see, Bud kind of keeps his eye on what's going on in the chat. And you want to share that with us, Bud?
Well, mostly people are just positively commenting on all of the things that have been talked about, and you've been sharing. Mostly everyone's just kind of way tuned in to Glen and Muffy sharing their wonderful story.
Mhm.
So we haven't had any questions yet. I
Okay.
did post in link the Wild Grace Community website. That's there. And I'll repost again all of the links so you can take a look at all the amazing things that Glen and Muffy do. So
Okay.
let me just put that again here. Here we go. So you can see you've got Take Heart Publications, A Course of Love, Choose Only Love, Miracles Magazine. Didn't mention that he's the editor of Miracles Magazine. Do you want to talk about that experience, Glen?
Well, John did a fabulous job for years and years and years. And then we kind of were working together on it. And then John said, "How about you being the editor?" And then our wonderful longtime designer, Patty Arnold, who is on the call,
Yeah.
who worked with us at Dawn Publications for decades, doing the children's picture books, which are very challenging technically. She came on board. So with the design, so we made it a color. We brought in color to the magazine, and Patty is a genius at bringing in illustrations that are appropriate. And yeah, anyway, so I kind of corral the articles. I and I'm always open, by the way, John and I,
Yeah.
always open to submissions. So I'd love to get a greater variety of perspectives, and ideally around 1,000 words, maybe a tad bit over. Ideally, bringing in something that's personal, not just preaching, because that's what where the power is in the personal sharing. So, yeah. Anyway, we're happy to have submissions.
So what happened was then in 2016, I think it was, we were together in Utah at a conference, and I've always been much more, well, interfaith. I mean, Bud and I are part of the interfaith seminary here, and looking at different kinds of disciplines, recognizing the Course in Miracles says, that this is one of many, actually the terminology says many thousands of different pathways home to God again. And of course there are many thousands, because there's billions of people and all over the world, and they've never heard of the stuff that we're working with. So, and I think there's this implication even that life itself is a path, and that you don't have to have a specific path, that we're all headed home. I mean, and we're all here, as you listen, especially to the near-death experience reports, that this is a school, that we all step into the school to learn something. And so we work with the path that we've got in front of us. But at the same time, we have to be open-minded. That's one of the 10 characteristics of a teacher of God. That's a manual for teachers of A Course in Miracles. That's the last one. But it's also it's the opening part of that. It says open-mindedness, perhaps the last characteristic that a teacher of God develops. Oh, that's perhaps the last characteristic. And I think what it means by that is total open-mindedness. So we're not closed off here we're not saying no to any philosophies or whatever, but we're also honing down into what we know works best for us. And the course is written in a Christian tradition, and we're essentially doing the work from a Western perspective here. So that's what we're open to. But there was this point at which, in about 2006, when we were together in Utah, and I don't hear a lot. I hear phrases. Once in a while, I get a phrase, just a phrase or a little one or two sentences. And I heard, speak to Glen. Oh, talk to Glen. Oh, well, okay. So here's another open-minded guy. So I'll talk to him, and that was just the beginning of the openness of our coming together and working on Miracles Magazine together. And I'm so glad we did, because by opening these doors, it's made all kinds of difference. And we've had some wonderful authors that have come in and joined us. I know some of those are on with us right now as well. So thank you, Glenn and Javier, and for the openings. Like going back to the slide a moment, the openings of the heavens. Heaven keeps opening up and showering its blessing on us in whatever way, I guess, that we're the most receptive to, right? I thought it's interesting that you said that Dawn Publications was based on nature. What was it? What was
Well, the idea, the original idea behind Dawn Publications was sharing nature with children.
That's interesting.
That's a book, a really well-known a book that Joseph Cornell wrote and Dawn published. But then we got into picture books for children.
And our intention was to inspire in children a deeper connection with our Mother Earth.
Well, yeah, because that's the first connection, isn't it? I mean, the first connection is just with Mother and Mother Earth. And I can actually remember an event as a child when I was either 8 or 9, sort of standing on this cistern behind, we grew up on a farm in Missouri, and just sort of being kind of overwhelmed by nature. I mean, just sort of it was in May, and everything was coming out into bloom, and it was like this perfect moment. And also just remembering, I want to be part of this. I want to be a part of this. I mean, I am a part of this, but explore it. Just keep going deeper and deeper into it. And that's
And we know that what we love, we will naturally want to protect and care for.
right. By the way, interesting enough, I'm reading a book, barely started a book on the founding of Findhorn, which is about nature. That's the grounding of it. That's where it started, with one man's love of nature, which is a beautiful experience right in of itself. So we want to also open the floor for anybody that would like to ask questions or make comments.
We've got 4 questions now in chat, and we've got people with their hands raised as well.
I just want to mention that, working with John has been a 100% total pleasure. We work together really well, and I think we respect each other totally. And it's just been a magnificent opportunity.
Yeah. Both of us, obviously. That's wonderful. Okay. So let's go ahead and look at, do people want to actually come on, or you're going to read the questions, bud?
We've got people with their hands raised. John, you want to go to them first, and then we can go back to the chat questions.
Okay, so let's, I don't see the hands, so I'm got.
So first we have Lynn up. So
Okay.
Lynn, would you like to come off mute and ask your question?
Sure. Wow. Hello. Good morning. Hope you guys can hear me okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. This is something I wanted to address from Glen's talk and the discussion of the A Course of Love and A Course in Miracles. And as you probably well know, I'm a Course in Miracles student, studied it for years, love it, teach it, attempt to live it, whatever, all those things. um, and absolutely, the whole idea of, forgiveness and all the joy that comes out of it is so wonderful. In 2012, I went to that course. I actually was a part of the staff on that uh, conference of the scribes, and I met Marone. I saw Mari, and she stood up on the stage, and yes, Larry Sire has those recordings. Very definitely, you can get them from him because I've bought a couple of from him already from other things. She stood up on that stage. I remember very well. She played the song "What's Going On" by Marvin Gaye. Excuse me. And she gave the most moving talk about the love that was lost in the world and how it was that what really needed to be returned to the world was love. And I realized, yes, I love A Course in Miracles. It talks a lot about love in A Course in Miracles, but A Course of Love talks about how to go forth in love, how to live as love, how to um, love, how to be love.
Right.
And it changed me and shifted me. And John, just as you were saying, that opened my mind, it opened my heart, and it opened my mind to the idea that there is much more beyond A Course in Miracles. And as much as I would love to say the Course in Miracles has everything you'll ever need, you'll never need anything else. As we grow, as we change, as we learn and see and experience, it shifts us. And, I'm a different person than the one who picked up that course that first day. And I have a very different life. And this is why being open-minded in this way is so essential. Now, recently, having gone through the Age of the Heart, Sebastian's beautiful book, what's next for us as humanity, as these living beings who are here, as we bring everybody together, bring the love back together in this world. That's what I'm here for. And John, just like you, laying on a rock out in the middle of the mountains when I was about 8 years old, felt the whole universe inside me and with me. And that return to nature, that return to joy, to love, that's what we're here for. And we're all here doing it. So I don't want to get too carried away. I just wanted to thank you for that. And I love you so much.
You too, and thank you so much. Let's go to Scott. Scott, you want to come on?
Yes, thank you. And I guess I do have a suggestion or a question at the end, but I just wanted to express my my heartfelt gratitude to John, Mundy, and certainly Glen and Muffy and everybody else. That's all the people that have received, that have listened to that voice, recognized it, as John would say, and followed it. In the contributions to Miracles Magazine, I see some familiar names on in reading those, and just everything that you've done and followed that to publish these very, very essential writings and messages. And I wanted to just say thank you. And just a quick story. John invited me to his 80th birthday bash last year, And I was just led to sit next to Muffy at the table during lunch, and I really that was a powerful conversation. I just wanted to let you know and to thank you for putting, having me grow in an amazing, incredible way that I couldn't have foreseen. And so thank you, John, for the invitation and for putting me in touch with Muffy for that 10-minute. It was like a 10 or 15-minute conversation, and so thank you.
It wasn't me. It must have been divine intervention.
No question about it. No question about it. So one just suggestion, I just want to throw it out there for Glen and Muffy. Any thoughts on a subscription model where you just automatically send your books, because I just buy them all anyways, audiobooks, put it all together and package it. I'll sign up.
Well, thank you for that suggestion, and I will take that in. Appreciate it.
Okay, let's go to Jack. Jack.
Say, Glen and Muffy, good to see you again. I met you in May of 23 at John's 80th, just as Scott just shared. And as a matter of fact, we were at the same table. And Glen, you and I spent an extended period of time talking about your publications. I have a comment I want to make, and I'd like for you to respond, Muffy and Glen, after I say this little piece. I do have A Course in Love. I have not read it extensively, so I'm not nearly as involved in understanding the work there, but I certainly appreciate the way you've explained the difference today. Here's my question. When we talk about the part called the way of Mary and the way of being, now we know that being is feminine, and we know that doing is masculine. And so in being is the creativity, whereas the doing, being masculine, is not the creativity. So in moving the consciousness of the planet into the feminine, we see that this is bringing in all of the feminine areas, whether it be creativity, feelings, writing, the very other side of the masculine world. Now, I didn't hear you put it in that context, but what I'm hearing when you explain it is the movement into the matriarchal, the feminine world, and moving away from the patriarchal or the masculine world. And if we look, like here in the United States, if we look at, there's about 60% of all people who enroll in law school and med school are now women. Women are taking over a lot of the higher levels of the political world in this country, whether it be governors, congresswomen, senators. Even in the local municipalities, women as leaders are becoming much more. This is in the dream world of form, of course. But we see that even in law school and med school, the women not only are greater achievers, but their acceptance in higher education is much greater. So we're seeing that the matriarchal movement, even in the world of form, where the dream is really happening. On a day-to-day basis, every year the enrollment is higher for women, and men are kind of getting behind. There's a lot of need for work for men. Even though the emphasis seems to be on women, it's really the men that are hurting out there in the world the way I see it. Right. Anyway, I just wanted you to comment on, Jesus is doing, and he is moving out, and Mary is coming in. Can you comment anything on what I've shared?
Sure. Muffy wants to say something. Yeah.
I'm all for balance.
Yeah.
I'm all for balance. I feel that we need to have the healthy masculine and the healthy feminine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jack, I appreciate what you said. It was very perceptive. And as I think Muffy is implying here, the feminine is not necessarily female. The females don't necessarily.
Oh, no.
Yeah, no.
No. We all have feminine in us.
That's right.
For men or women. Yes.
That's right. That's right.
It has nothing to do with female or male.
And so about the time of Jesus sort of ending eventually, I think what I recall he said was that the time of Jesus creates the opening that then can be responded to by those in the way of Mary. So it's not like, I mean, and frequently those two ways of being, doing and being are embodied in a particular, any particular person. It's not necessarily one or the other at all.
Well, like Muffy said, balance of the two, the doing and the being. And also, too, I think there's a dark side to the feminine and there's a dark side to the masculine. And there's also the light side for both. And I think, unfortunately, in our society, culture has pushed the dark side of the masculine way, way too much, when there's a very bright and light side for the masculine, too, that often hasn't been emphasized as much. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Right. I also noticed, by the way, Jack, recently that there's a lot of women leaders in Europe now, more than there have ever been before.
And in Mexico.
We're behind.
And in Mexico,
US is
yes.
behind.
Yes, right.
Thank you. And it's good to see
Thank
you
you.
guys again.
Go to Alice friend. Alice is
Hmm.
Rod's wife, who was just who created that stained glass window. Hi, Alice. And you're
Hi.
in Spain,
Hi.
right?
I
Hi.
am. I just wanted to say that one of the things that's really coming out in this beautiful time with you all is enthusiasm. I feel so much enthusiasm, Glenn, from everything you've shared, and it's absolutely beautiful. And you know, Rod always talked about the roots of words, like the Latin roots or the Greek roots of words. And he was an incredibly enthusiastic person. And enthusiasm means divinely inspired. And everything you've been saying about what you do and the books you publish and the beautiful community that you're doing is divinely inspired. And I want to just share with all of you that Rod's enthusiasm is still alive and well.
Yeah.
It's affecting me deeply, deeply. And I'm very joyous. And I'm filled with love because of that enthusiasm. It's exploding like a supernova to all of us. And I'm just so touched about your divine inspiration in everything you do, Glen and Muffy. And it rubs off on me, and I'm sure it rubs off on everybody. Because if we're divinely inspired, how can it not rub off on us?
Right.
You know? And the enthusiasm from Rod now to represent the realm of love for all of us. It certainly is representing it for me. All the things that are in the books that you publish are now living experience with my husband in the other side. I need to say that, and it's continuing, and it's an incredible grace and gift. But thank you for your enthusiasm, your divine inspiration, and everything you do.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you, Alice. That's very nice to hear. And so one thing occurs to me around the way of Mary. One of the things that Jesus said there is that the way of Mary is not a way, although it's a more internal thing, obviously, it's not without a tremendous amount of relationship. It's very much engaged with the world. Engaged with the world. This is not a retreat from the world.
Right. Thank you. So let's go to Sophia.
Excuse me. I want to thank you so much for this presentation and also the comments that we've heard. But I want to address two things. What you said, John, about listen, learn, and do.
Right.
And then also Glenn's comment about that the Course in Miracles is an invitation for a personal relationship with the divine. And I want to tell you about an experience I had that perfectly exemplifies this. I had left my husband, and you were talking about having an open mind. Well, my mind was absolutely the opposite. I was absolutely closed, and I never wanted to lay eyes on this jerk ever again. And something told me to open the Course in Miracles, and I was really excited because I wanted to see what my new chapter was about. And I open it. Okay, so the rule is, if I open the book and I don't want to read it, I have to do it. Okay, so
Wow.
do it. Okay, so what do? I open it to this chapter called the Healed Relationship. And I'm like, no, no.
Not healing.
I had to read this book. And I swear to you, I read the first paragraph and I'm thinking, no, you don't understand. This is what's happening over here. And the next paragraph was, and I was having a debate with this book. And what I got out of it at the moment was that God is in everyone. And if your brother comes to you with his hand outstretched to connect and you say no to your brother, you say no to God. And I'm like, well, anyway, so this was the one of three incredible coincidences that I wrote about in my book, The Divine Language of Coincidence. And I tell you, my mind was so close to this, but it was so disarming, these three coincidences, that this was in 2009, and we got back together, and he's transformed, and I'm married to my dream guy. Okay, so Course in Miracles, I can be your spokesman forever and ever. But what I wanted to share with you that is so exciting to me is that scientists have gotten the attention of both of my books. And I just have to tell you how encouraging that is to me. So I knew that scientists studied consciousness. I had no idea that they studied coincidence. And the ones that were interested in my book, because there were too many events, so I plucked out all the ones that had to do with death, around death, and wrote my second book. And so they didn't want to touch the second book with a 10-foot pole. So then, just before publication, the title is Consciousness Beyond Death, True Stories of Science, Messages, and Timing. So I want to tell Alice that he's here, just on the other side of the veil, And so just my luck, there's a new, because, these scientists, they'll write about NDEs, right, near-death experiences, because they've been studied for decades, but they wouldn't touch my book at all. And then a new scientific field emerged just in time for my publication, ADC, after-death communication. So now it's okay. So I just have to let you know that they're catching up.
Okay. Well, that makes perfect sense. Of course, that's always been there, hasn't it? But you're just bringing it out into the open. That's wonderful. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
How does the role, meaning of forgiveness differ and or apply with A Course of Love and A Course in Miracles as brought through Jesus's course? So how does forgiveness differ, or the role or the meaning of forgiveness?
I don't know.
If I might try to answer that wonderful question. There's the power of words and Jesus has taken the word forgiveness and defined it differently in A Course in Miracles. So forgiveness is not, is what did not actually happen.
Right.
So forgiveness is definitely present in A Course of Love, but the emphasis has moved to acceptance.
Mm.
So acceptance is huge in A Course of Love. And acceptance to me is just perhaps, because we're dealing with word symbols, right? But acceptance is a little bit more like, oh, it's not merely that didn't happen. It's it's allowing it to settle in as what it is.
Oh.
Yeah.
Say the same thing as the Glen did, really, essentially. Nothing happened though. That's God's forgiveness. God's forgiveness. What forgive what? Oh, you killed somebody. Oh, okay, but not in reality. Not in the truth of the being, not in, but that's not part of heaven. That's not part of eternity. Let's go to Hildy and Lynn, and then we'll do maybe I have something I'd like to do.
Thank you, Glenn, for this last words of acceptance when you're going through something really hard and saying it's not happening, it's not happening, it's not happening. That process might be a process towards this didn't happen. So I feel that the way you put acceptance, it's like climbing the step up higher, and the possibility becomes clearer. And the other question, comment and a question. It seems that you have made this wonderful temple and nature, and it just looks amazing, and everybody says they're excited. So when are we going?
Good question.
That's lovely. Thank you for that. And you might just visit wildgracecommunity.com and you find out more about it.
While she's on screen, I'll also thank Hildy has just edited my next book in Spanish.
Oh.
Thank you, Hildy.
There was a question behind the scenes when you were saying such and such a book was not to be translated just as Helen Schuttman had said. So I will leave it behind the scenes.
Let's go to Lynn.
Namaste, mighty companions. Glen, Muffy, thank you so much. And John, always thank you so much. I have just a little poem for us.
This is inspiration.
We are proof that no body is needed as we embrace love absolute. Space and time transformed in path. Antennas we be in light that surpasses. Empowered love us together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Back to you, Bud. Do you have another comment before we
Yeah, we have a couple here. So first is my understanding from what Glenn described is that feelings are either rejected or repressed or ejected and projected. How does A Course of Love offer a healing alternative? Is it, as ACIM suggests, forgiveness?
Oh.
Interesting question. So yes, it's not this. A Course of Love is not different in basics from A Course in Miracles. They are completely compatible. A Course of Love simply goes on to explain in certain ways and certain things that are helpful. So yeah, and I just kind of repeat myself here. The healing happens through knowing who you are. And that is a matter of self-forgiveness and self-acceptance.
Capital S.
But I don't want to, try to give a little formula here because I don't think that would be useful. But they both books, as well as the other books through Sebastian and so on, are they're basic about healing because it's who you really are, the truth of your being. That, as I understand it, if you really know who you are, then there's healing because the truth is coming through you. And sometimes that means that you will be confronting issues. That's okay. That's what's necessary. These are the blocks for love.
That's right.
But yeah, just knowing who you really are.
Love that. That's wonderful. And then here's an interesting question for Glen and Muffy and for John and Mary as well. How do you personally receive guidance?
Mm-hmm.
I begin each morning in the temple and I just open myself. I still my mind. I connect with the light of my soul, ask to be guided and by the divine mother in whatever way she would like us to manifest this vision here.
Thanks for that beautiful question. I also, at our little community here, we 7 a.m., 5 days a week, 8 a.m. Sundays, we're in the temple together for 45 minutes. A little chant, a little reading, and then silence. So to me, that sacred silence is foundational. On the other hand, the question is how. So, I can't answer how. I mean, yes, there's prayer. There's always sort of like that inner invitation to, whoa, what, okay, what should be happening here? What am I supposed to do? But it's not a formula. There's no formula for me. It's just being as open and in touch with who I am as I can.
In terms of the course, one of the lessons is God's voice speaks to me all through the day. And I think that's really true. There's no time that it's not there. The only question is whether there's a block, whether I'm blocking or not. And I think the best poem I ever got came while I was washing dishes. Very often it'll come while driving the car. Otherwise, I'm usually cooking something, like, where there's something cooking. And the time I really like the best is really early in the morning before I get out of the bed. Or I'll get out of bed and go to bed and then come back to bed. And just laying there, and especially if I'm kind of looking I'm going to write something that day, a Sunday with Mundy piece or something like that. Many times I've just said, okay, what is it? And then, let's go this way. Let's think about this. And it may be something that relates to the world, by the world, I mean, to the egotism of the world or something like that. But, and it's not usually too hard. But I mean, often it's just a matter of the application of the seat of the pants to the seat of the chair and the fingers to the keys. and let it go, right?
Yeah.
Now, there's something I'd like to do. We're at the end of our time, but I guess we don't have like, there's not a gong that's gonna, say it's over, or that we're not having another channel coming on. I thought it'd be fun if we can do this. We have Mari's on with us. There's a lot of our writers from Miracles Magazine that are with us. Can we bring them if they just raise their hand? And can we bring a group of people on screen? Bud, can that
Sure.
be?
Yeah.
All right. So if you on our graphic artist is with you, here's Mari. All right. So the rest of you, raise your hand if you've ever written an article for Miracles Magazine, and then come on screen. Look at Mari at the bottom of the screen right now. Hi, Mari. Good to see
Mari.
you.
Yeah. Ask the question again, John.
Anybody who's written an article for Miracles Magazine and or works with us, like Patty elsewhere, I'd like to get Patty on as well, our graphic art designer for the magazine, or translated something for us.
And poems also.
Poems, of course. Yeah, we don't want to leave the poets out. Yeah, just keep bringing them. There's so many here, and thank you all for being here. My goodness, look at this.
Hey.
Yeah, and there's more. So, all right, guys. Thank you guys for being a part of who we are and a part of this community, which very, very nicely is growing and going in the right direction. By the right direction, I just mean there's a very clear sense, I think, that we all have that, well, we all know consciousness is expanding. There's no doubt about that. It's growing into another dimension, and or I might add that around that, we're also seeing fringes of insanity. I think you know what I mean by the fringes of insanity. So we have to deal with that as well. But thank God, I think that we're going to be able to maintain our sanity and help other people to maintain their sanity as we go through the changes that I think we all see coming up in the next few years. So thank you for being here. All right.
Thank you, John, for this very sweet opportunity.
Yeah, we always like to end, Bud, can you put the slide of the
Happy to.
Course in Miracles, the prayer from Course in Miracles on screen, and I will read it. You all probably familiar. This is on page. It's the last paragraph on chapter 16. Forgive us our illusions, Father, and help us to accept our true relationship with you, in which there are no illusions and where none can ever enter. Our holiness is yours. What can there be in us that needs forgiveness when yours is perfect? The sleep of forgetfulness is only the unwillingness to remember your forgiveness and your love. Let us not wander into temptation, for the temptation of the Son of God is not your will. And let us receive only what you have given, and accept but this into the mind which you created and which you love. Amen. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.
I thank you, Glen and Muffy, and I hope to see some of you at some of our future Sunday with Mondays. The next one is September 8th, and then Bud has got his Seeker's Compass the time after that. All right. Well, thank you all for being here today.
Thank you. It was
Bud.
wonderful,
Yeah.
everyone. It was wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you